we got to get into the opening salvo, if you will. PS5's Concord. This is a free-to-play game. I'm sorry. Hold on a second. Let me rewind that. It is not a free-to-play game, and that's why it's going to fail, but it's a gas game. It's a gas game because Sony has seen the likes of Fortnite and Apex Legends and PUBG, but they've also seen the likes of a direct competitor, and that is Microsoft, and that is Xbox. And they see how much money that they make through Sea of Thieves and Grounded and a few other gas games that are a part of Xbox Game Studios, and they are making money. Halo Infinite is free to play. They are making money. They get $44.99 almost every operation from me because I like buying armor skins. I have dozens of them. I know you can only have so many in your queue, but I like having a lot of Spartans. I play a lot of it. I have a ridiculous amount of days. I think that was almost like 23 days in Halo Infinite. So it's one of those games that I don't mind paying for the armor. And that's a gas game. Well, Sony felt jealous and they want money. But again, like I said in the opening, Silent Cypher, Sony always seems to be half in and half out when they do things. We can give rampant examples, both in hardware and games. You made mention of PlayStation VR 2.0, millions spent in development, R&D and such, and now that thing is just a paperweight, which is unbelievable. And again, it's not it's a typical Sony move. They did it with the PSP, they did it with the Vita, they've done it with both VRs. It's just Sony being a Sony, but don't forget, it's okay. It's Sony. They could do what they want. But we've also seen it in games. We saw it with Destruction All-Stars when the PlayStation 5 was coming out. That was a launch title. That was a gas game before gas games were like really hot. They said it was going to be $70. No one pre-ordered it. They said, "Oh no, listen, you the fan, you win. It's in game. It's in the service." I played it. I actually enjoyed it. I'm not going to front. It was a fun game. It was Fortnite meets Twisted Metal in a weird way. I enjoyed it. Whatever. Game came out and basically flopped. Well, we've seen it also with other games that they have, dipped their toe into with partnerships. Foam Stars, I mean, yikes. 10 people were playing upon launch. Like, wow, okay, that's a failure. So here we are, Concord. Why are we talking about Concord? Well, it was announced. It was something that they opened the State of Disappointment with, and it was just terrible. It looked terrible. It looked generic. It looked like a dollar store knockoff of, let's say, for instance, you go to pick up Drano, and it's like Drain O, with a big O. So this is really not going to work. I shouldn't get this. That's what it felt like. The characters are just awfully designed, and I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be like a jerk about it, but it looks terrible. So Sony, instead of making it an actual free-to-play Silent Cypher, it is, you got to buy it for $40. And then there's even I think a $90 edition that gives you all the skins and everything. Here's the problem. There's a beta this weekend. And one of the only ways to get into the beta was to pre-order this game. Well, apparently, thanks to VGC, the pre-orders were so terrible and so low that the only people that were actually putting, being a part of the beta were PC. And they needed to open it up to everyone on PlayStation who has a PlayStation Plus account. And now you're in this weekend. So go check it out. So you can check out that jiggly hamburger. But I think this is going to fail. Silent Cypher, let's get your hot take on this.
Yeah, I don't know. I miss the days when they first announced this thing, last year, and it was just a jiggly hamburger. I at least at that point was like, okay, this is interesting. Like, I'm not sure what we're doing, but sure, let's go with it. But then when they showed us again this year, and it literally just looked like it was the dollar store Guardians of the Galaxies in a hero shooter. I'm sorry, hero shooters aren't my thing anyways, but this made me care even less. I looked at it and I was like, this is more generic than Overwatch. and some of these other ones I've seen, I just have no interest. It is a bad look when you initially lock your beta access behind pre-orders, and then you end up just opening it up to everyone. So not only did you probably trick a couple people into pre-ordering your bogus game, but then you're like, oh crap, well, we got to get more people into this thing so we can at least get some good metrics. So then you make it available for everyone. So then, there's probably a few people out there that are like, why'd I pre-order this to get access when I could have just waited? It's not a good look. Now, you could, I guess, play devil's advocate, and you could say, well, maybe they just want to open it up to more people because they realize the greatness that they're locking behind this pre-order. I think that's a giant load of bullshit. If that's what you go with, Godspeed to you if that's what your approach is. But I think that's kind of a joke. This game, I feel like as soon as we saw the details, like I said, this year, I feel like this thing, it was the nail in the coffin. Because at least when it was just Burger Buddy or whatever the heck it was last year, it had people wondering, okay, what is this game? But once we saw what it was this year, you lost all motivation and interest. Like, I'm sure some people will enjoy it, but the fact that this thing even has a price point going into it instead of just down or purchased costumes and stuff like that, if it were a free to play with costumes and things like that, maybe it'd have a little more time. But the fact that you're going to have to pay to get into this thing, you're already going to have a hopper that's not full of people because we know the reception for this game so far. You got a bunch of fanboys out there that are freaking out about it, saying it's going to be the next coming. But when this thing comes out, it's going to end up fizzling out just like every other game's come out recently. And it does go back to what you're saying. Sony likes to dip their toes in, but they don't like to fully dive in and dedicate themselves to these things. We've seen this for many years now. Like, you look at some of the things that they had that were great pillars. You look at something like the PSP or the PS Vita. Okay, they had a awesome portable handheld there that like it was everyone's thing. Everyone had a PSP or a PS Vita at one point in time. Like, it was a big thing, and they just completely hacked it off at the legs and said, we're done with that. That's we're not dealing with that anymore. And then you see them with PSVR, right? Like, PSVR 1 did not set the world on fire. It sold about 5 to 6 million units, which, okay, whatever, that's great, I guess. But then PSVR 2 came out to even more lukewarm reception, of which you could say that was the price point. It was the fact that there was barely anything announced for it when it first came out. It was them literally just kind of kicking this thing out, it felt like, to die, which is weird because, like, if you want to bring out this new ecosystem, you'd want to support it, right? You'd want to make back compat for it, all the things, so you could get as many people in as possible. And it literally felt like they just kind of kicked it out to the curb and were like, we're not giving you any food or water. We'll see how long you last without any sustenance. And then they tried to pull back at the last second here, just like a month ago. They're like, whoa, we still have stuff for you on the PSVR too, when they already told us that they stopped production on the units.
Well, they closed the studio that made the games.
Yeah.
Like,
so
one of the major studios that actually made the games. You know what's interesting? It's funny you mentioned that. I bet a lot of people didn't know this. Insomniac, before they were purchased by Sony, made a lot of VR games. Like, they are incredibly talented at VR, but they're also carrying the studio. So they could have stepped up, and I mean, I don't know how it would have translated to make a Spider-Man. It might have made people throw up trying to swing through the city, but they're really good at VR. It's a shame, especially if you invested almost $700. It's just gross.
It's a missed opportunity, I think, is the biggest thing. And we keep seeing these occurrences happen. Like, yeah, okay, Concord's coming out, but you've got, what is it, the First Descendant that just came out, free to play. So anyone can jump into that right now, of which, like, that's sucking up all the air in the room right now when it comes to that style of game. So the idea that this thing's coming out and they're like, oh, well, okay, we'll give everyone access so they can get into this game. Like, no one cares. Like, I'm sure there will be a couple fanboys will be on there. They'll be pounding the chest, super excited about it. But I really don't see this thing lasting. I think I said it on here previously. I don't see this thing lasting for more than 6 months before they shutter.
Dude, you're giving them too much credit. I think this thing's got 3 weeks worth of legs.
I'm
It's dead.
I'm trying to be generous. I'm trying to be generous. I think 6 months is max. Realistically, probably 90 days.
Yeah, I mean,
But
we'll
that's
see.
just me.
And it's a great point. Great points all around, brother. Again, it's the half in, half out. And you know what, Korkenstein, what is a conundrum to me is everyone knows I'm an Xbox guy first, but I don't dislike the PlayStation. I actually very much like my PlayStation. I dislike Sony. I don't like the way they do their business. It's very egregious. It's very nickeling, diming the customer to death. I don't like it. But I can tell you, as a classic PlayStation fan, I have been dying for a free-to-play game in the form of a Twisted Metal or a Last of Us, or, Last of Us 2 online. Because I did play Last of Us online. I mean, I wasn't a diehard player, but I think that there's enough there to bring me back in as a Sony player. Worse than that, though, is the absence and a perfect model and a perfect old IP to get people excited is SOCOM. Like, SOCOM just screams, hey, make me, and we're going to make some money. Now, granted, it's got to be a good game, but just look at some of what Call of Duty does and Apex Legends and PUBG. They continue to make money. A really well-designed SOCOM that was free to play with the same attachment, season passes, whether it be, once a quarter, once every month, you design your own operator. Obviously you don't make it pay to win. You do cosmetics, you earn the guns through playing the game. Very easy to do. And they've canceled everything. Now, SOCOM, we don't know for sure, but they did say a military shooter, right? Remember that? I remember that. So I was like, oh my God, here we go. And well, gone. The Spider-Man multiplayer game, I would have literally take my wallet out of my pocket and just throw it at the screen. Take it. Take my money, please. Gone. Canceled. Destroyed. And this is what we're left with. But Korkenstein, why this is going to fail grossly, besides it just not being a good-looking game or having a differentiating loop that you would see just 2 days ago, I think 3 days ago now, Overwatch 2 announced a crossover with Transformers. And for crying out loud, I don't even play Overwatch, and I want to give them that money. I'm like, I got to play this. I've played it in the past. I didn't play 2, only 1. And I was like, it's not my bag. But to make matters worse, to kind of cut yourself open and just say, hey, where is the salt and the vinegar? Because I want to feel the burn. They put this trailer in with the Marvel trailer, which of course everyone is going to be playing Marvel games. So they literally slit their own throat with this game on when they first showed it, when the second time they showed it off. I'm interested to get your hot take on how badly this game is going to fail.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it was paywalled instantly, when you have way better options that are free to play, that already have players invested, that have a built IP, paywalling it on a new IP, that just makes absolutely no sense. It's, I could understand, like you said, Twisted Metal, SOCOM, Spider-Man, Factions. I would have paid money because I like those IPs. I would have invested in those IPs because I'm already invested in them. But a brand new, and you're like, you got to cough up $40 for something you have no idea what it will be, how it will actually play. And I think that's why they're doing the free to play now, is because they're realizing, hey, yeah, this isn't taking off like we thought it would. It's the Sony arrogance. We've talked about it before on this podcast, the PS3 Sony arrogance, where, you know, they just think they could just release whatever they want and people are just going to instantly buy in, and that's really not the case. Gamers are more frugal now. People, you know, Xbox, you know, changed the game with Game Pass. You know, people have options now to try, and if they like it, they'll invest. If they don't, they won't, you know, that kind of thing. So I think with Concord, they already just DOA'd it with the paywall. I give it probably about maybe 2 months to 3 months, and then they'll probably go free to play, or you know, packaged in with PS Plus. They'll get a little bit of a resurgence, but then I think like month 4, it's pretty much done and open with. I think this was a vision that Jim Ryan wanted to kind of go for and kind of copy that Xbox style of live service. For, you know, and I honestly think he might have done it for free, understanding, you know, what Xbox is doing and how they're doing it. And I don't think Sony liked that very much. Like you said, they like to nickel and dime. Could be another reason why he was voluntold to leave the company. But it's just, yeah, it's going to be DOA, I think. And it's a shame because they actually do some cool stuff. I actually have always wanted cinematics for Overwatch because it's such a great story that hardly anybody knows about, because it's just play and shoot. You know, but having that's a cool idea. That's something that could be really awesome that they're just kind of squandering here. So yeah, I give it about 4 months, I'd say.
Let's get your hot take on the Jiggly Burger and whether or not this is already spoiled before the chef brings it out.
Where to begin on this one? First, I'll start off with blame Bungie. You all of you that thought that Bungie was a better acquisition than Activision, good on you. Now you're reaping those rewards, I guess. Remember, Bungie's the one that they brought in as their kind of like judger or like the one that would sign off on
The
a
savior.
good gas game. Yeah. And they shot down Factions. They shot down the Spider-Man game, which, by the way, would have probably outdone Bungie's Destiny 2 and Marathon combined.
By leaps and bounds. Yeah.
But, you know, Bungie had that authority to shoot them down after they spent all that time, effort, energy, resources, the whole nine. They killed those games. The games they didn't kill, well, I don't think they could have killed Helldivers because that one was too close to release. And I think just hearing how the team that's been on social media respond to things, they wouldn't have put up with it. They would have released the game anyway, or found a way to release it, even if Sony decided, oh well, we're canceling it. Okay, well, we'll take everything that's not your paid for IP and turn it into a different game. But I think that was the behind the scenes stuff on how Helldivers actually made the cut. Destiny, or not Destiny, but Bungie probably tried to kill that, and Arrowhead was able to point out it was better than what Bungie probably said. Now, as far as when it came to Concord, of course they approved that one because it has, at points, when you look at the gameplay, it has kind of a Destiny PvP look with some of the gunplay. But outside of that, the best part of that whole thing was the CGI trailer a year or so ago, and then the CGI story the background story that they showed before the actual game. Those were the two best parts of that game. Because it's neither of those things, it's not going to do well. And I had my pointed issues with the game when I saw it, and the fact that before the showcase even finished, I was like, is it free or are they charging? Because it's saying pre-order for beta, and it's like Sony doesn't even do refunds well. So you have to pre-order this to test the beta, and then if the beta sucks and you don't like the game, guess what? You downloaded the beta, you can never get a refund on the game. So that's a Sony policy problem right there. Secondly, if you look at the original gameplay replays, sure, they talk about their 16 or 18 heroes, but they only show the first 5. And then when they play the game, you don't see any of those other heroes. You see people wearing like trench coats and just regular skins, where normally you would have like a healer or a tank, and none of the other players on that opposing team look like they would fit those roles. Like, I guess the lady that was wearing the long blue trench coat was supposed to be the tank on that team, but didn't really look like a hero that you would expect. So I always wondered, are you playing against bots, or are you supposed to be playing against other players? Because what other player is picking, crappy looking characters like that? But maybe it's that you see them as that, and then in their eyes, they're the same hero that you might be, kind of thing. I don't know. It just, there was some confusion on some of the mechanics aspect as far as how that game is going to play out in comparison. But once again, I'm not the biggest, hero arena shooter kind of, person. Although I will admit, like Boom said earlier, and Silent Cypher said earlier, and even Korkenstein said earlier, Marvel's Marvel's
Marvel
Heroes
Rivals, that's what it's called.
Rivals,
Yeah.
that was actually the better hero shooter game for, the state of play. So that automatically, like you said, it slit their throat from jump. And there's other better free to play games. If they hadn't learned from Destruction All Stars, which they need to get rid of anything with stars in it, because Foam Stars and All Stars didn't do so well. And I
The
played
curse of the
both. Well, I didn't play
stars.
Foam Stars, but I played Destruction All Stars. And I realized when I got Winner Chicken Dinner on my second play, my second round, I was like, yeah, this really isn't it. But all of those things aside, I think the big problem now is that, yeah, they're I wouldn't say they're in panic mode, but they're starting to realize that maybe charging $40 for a game in a space where nobody's doing that right now will just give them another lawbreakers. No smoke for, Cliffy B or anything like that. But the PlayStation crowd didn't pick up on his game when it was an exclusive over there. It wound up kind of shuttering his studio or having him, rethink things with the other, battle royale that he made afterwards and stuff. But the drawback is, with this being a, first party studio now, and being a first party game, and your player base for the console still doesn't seem to support these games. The only multiplayer games they seem to really care about are the big dogs like Fortnite, Call of Duty, Apex Legends. So if you're not making anything that's taking attention away from that, to have somebody that might even be on another platform say, you know what, I'll play this on my PC, or I might pick up a PS5 for this, you're already in the hole at this point. So they might as well make it a free to play from jump, and just make it where, just like any other game, even like what do you call them, the First Ascendant, make other characters, unlockable through, microtransactions, or you can grind for them, whatever the case may be. But I think that would have been the better approach from jump, as far as getting this game at least in front of enough eyes that want to play it. But if they're not getting the pre-order numbers that they want, and they're having to open it up to everybody, yeah, sure, I might give it a try this weekend. But, I already found, something, at least not, I wouldn't say special, but something fun and enjoyable that's a free to play with First Ascendant, that there's a pretty high bar right now for me to even take any more attention away from that at this point. And that even goes for some other games that you have to pay for to have multiplayer. I think First Ascendant was kind of like that game that watched its competition closely. Sure, some people will say, oh, they copied a few things, but a lot of games copy from other games. Well, no matter what, there's not that many original ideas, except for in the indie space these days. So a lot of these bigger studios, and even some of the smaller ones, will take little bits and pieces and then put their own spin on it. And a lot of times, sometimes they miss, sometimes they hit. I mean, Pow World, everybody thought, oh, it's Pokemon with guns. Not really that, but for the most part, that appeal got enough people to at least try it, found out that they liked it, and it blew up from there. So this is another one that, I don't see that with Concord. Sure, if they could find a way to make it the Gardens of the Galaxy, not the dollar store version type of thing, I think they would have had a little bit more attention drawn to it, a little bit more interest, or people, putting the pre-orders in. But when you're just making it a PvP arena shooter kind of thing, and there's no real like draw to the characters outside of that little CGI trailer you did, I don't know what to tell you. I don't want to give a timeline on when it dies. I think Sony's committed to keeping this thing alive for a year and then shutting down the servers quietly, because they'll figure at that point, probably about 4 to 6 months in, people will stop playing it anyway. But if this isn't on like PS Plus or something, I don't see the PC crowd really having the interest in this. I mean, unless this is Destiny with a reskin as far as PvP is concerned. And even Destiny fans have had a problem with PvP over the last decade. So I don't really see this grabbing hold of that community quite as much. I don't know. I really don't think this does that well. We'll see if Fair Game does any better, but like Boom said, Payday, dollar store or dollar store version of Payday 3. I, we'll see. I still think Spider-Man and Factions were their better bets, and whoever the directors are for those games should have said "F you" to whoever's over at Bungie and put money where their mouth was, kind of thing, and say, "All right, let's see which does better, the Final Shape or this game." And I think that would have probably caused some turmoil behind the scenes, which it already has because of all the issues in that regard. But I think it would have wound up better for the PlayStation player crowd. But we'll never know until Jason Schreier releases a tell-all book in like a year or two. So we'll see if that ever happens.